After 20 long years in another world, the hero prepares for his final battle to defeat the monster and save this world. Suddenly, from a circular vortex of crackling lightning and blazing fire, a terrifying monster emerges, with its red eyes glowing with menace. The monster, a gargantuan winged beast, taunts the hero, acknowledging his resilience. It points out that the hero's companions, the Saintess, Mage, and Knight, are on their last legs. The hero, Lee Han-seok, retorts with defiance, noting that the monster looks just as worn out. Enraged by his insolence, the beast charges a powerful magical attack, and hero is also ready for the counterattack. Hyun-seok fearlessly clashes with the beast and manages to deflect monster attacks. His companions struggle to maintain a defensive barrier, but it begins to crack under the monster's onslaught. The monster unleashes its full power, threatening to tear him to pieces if he doesn't submit. It declares its dominion over the land, a kingdom forged with its own power. Yet Hyun-seok stands unshaken, undeterred by any threat, and his gaze filled with unwavering determination. The two combatants engage in another high-speed, earth-shattering exchange of blows. Hyun-seok tightens his grip on his spear, preparing to unleash his final move. Wreathed in a golden aura, he declares that it's time to end their long battle, and he prepares a deadly assault, unleashing it in a storm of lightning and explosion. The energy surges forward, racing straight toward the monster. Hyun-seok unleashes his signature technique, the Paradox Flame. After using his technique, he plants his foot firmly to brace himself against the recoil of his attack. Once again, the monster strikes from a distance, unleashing deadly lightning energy. Hyun-seok swiftly dodges, evading the attack, but the energy crashes into a vortex. But the monster endures the deadly attack. The devastated battlefield shows their clash. The monster charges forward, and both unleash a flurry of strikes. After that, the monster swings its massive claws, aiming to crush him. Hyun-seok expertly parries the attack with the shaft of his spear. The sheer force of the blow pushes him back, but he holds his ground. The monster mocks his effort, and claiming the attack was too weak to even leave a scratch. Hyun-seok smirks, questioning the monster's assessment of his strength. He declares his attack is more than enough to shatter its arrogance. A strange red energy erupts from the point of contact, spreading across the monster's body. The monster's golden headpiece shatters and falls to the ground, a symbol of its failing power. The mysterious red flame begins to consume the beast from the inside out. The monster, in disbelief, acknowledges that a mere human could stand against it. Hyun-seok corrects the beast, reminding it that he is not native to this world. The dying monster dismisses his words, vowing to one day return by being absorbed into the land. Suddenly, its regeneration fails, and its eyes widen in shock. As the monster realizes it's being completely erased, Hyun-seok confirms that its ability to regenerate has been nullified. He explains the nature of his Paradox Flame, a special ability that burns not oxygen, but abstract concepts like reason and memories. He informs the monster that its hobby of resurrection is over, as the flame is now burning away its very existence. In its final moments, the monster curses him, claiming he will never be remembered as a hero. The beast plays its final card, revealing that his companions are secretly waiting for him to die. To the monster's utter shock, Hyun-seok calmly replies that he already knew of their betrayal. As the Saintess pleads for him to ignore the monster, Hyun-seok reveals he knows she only pretended to love him and actually despises him as an outsider. He knew her seduction was just a ploy to make him hesitate when the time came for them to eliminate him. He confronts her directly, asking if he's wrong. Her silence is all the confirmation he needs. He dismisses them all, stating that the other two companions are just as treacherous. He exposes the knight's plan to assassinate him for a national treasure, a cowardly move by an emperor afraid of the hero's power. He then calls out the mage, who hates him for opposing the slavery system from which he profits through human experimentation. He coldly reveals that he has been aware of their murderous intentions for the last 5 years. The monster, fading from existence, cannot comprehend why he didn't simply destroy the treacherous world that betrayed him. With a weary expression, Hyun-seok gives his simple reason: all he ever wanted was to go home. The concept of home is something the monster, a being of this world, cannot grasp. A flashback takes us 20 years into the past, to the year 2005 on Earth. He recounts his past life as an ordinary 30-year-old office worker, before a goddess summoned him to another world. However, the other world I arrived in was a disaster, and from the moment he arrived, he tried everything he could to find a way back to Earth. He soon learned there was only one path home: defeat the monsters and save this world. His early days were fraught with distrust, like when the guard of villagers questioned him for venturing out alone. In the past, he is seen trying to bring a rescued child back to a village for safety. The guards callously dismissed the child as a lost cause and a waste of medicine, revealing the world's cruel nature. But that cruelty was just the beginning. The real horror lay elsewhere. He witnessed the primitive state of their medicine, where simple infections were treated with brutal amputations. He learned that with all healers deployed for battle, there was no one left to properly treat the wounded. The constant suffering and cruelty of this world weighed heavily on him. He then faced suspicion from the church, which questioned how a child could survive capture by monsters. Their horrifying solution was to declare the child possessed and exorcise it, a death sentence disguised as piety. They condemned his compassion as useless pity, warning him not to defy the gods in a world with no concept of human rights. After enduring 20 years in that agonizing world, he finally fulfilled his mission and saved it. With the final monster defeated, a weary Hyun-seok breathes a sigh of relief. But his relief is short-lived as the knight confirms the betrayal, admitting they cannot let him live now that he knows the truth. Hyun-seok turns his face as he admits just how much he truly despises this world. The knight begins to panic, realizing their plan might be going awry. And realize their mistake. In trying to kill one monster, they've only created another. The hero, wounded but radiating immense power. Ignoring his treacherous party, Hyun-seok shouts to the heavens, demanding the goddess fulfill her end of the bargain. A divine light descends from the sky, bathing the battlefield in a golden glow. The light intensifies, signaling the arrival of the goddess who sent him here. The goddess appears, congratulating him for enduring so much and finally defeating the monster. Hyun-seok wastes no time, reminding her of her promise to preserve his soul, experiences, and memories. He finishes his demand, that she send him back to Earth as promised. The goddess tries to tempt him, questioning why he would leave after gaining so much power, warning that all his achievements will be nullified if he returns. Hyun-seok cut it with the act. You are just relieved I am leaving as promised, but God says this world no longer has a need for a monster after all. With a hint of sadness, the goddess asks one last time if he will truly have no regrets. He drops his weapon, his resolve unshakable, stating that his only desire is to return to the world he once knew. With that final declaration, his journey in this world is over. The goddess agrees to his request as Hyun-seok prepares to leave the godforsaken world behind. As his body begins to fade, he sees his hand, feeling the weight of the last 20 years finally lift. His body is enveloped in a brilliant light as the goddess explains that his original body on Earth has long since perished. She informs him that his soul will be placed in a new vessel, the body of someone fated for a wretched end. Assured by her that he will survive, Hyun-seok accepts, not caring about the new body's unfortunate fate. He firmly believes that no matter how harsh his new life is, it will be better than the hell he just escaped. A flicker of light marks his soul's transition across dimensions. He awakens in a modern bedroom, discovering he has returned to Earth in the year 2025. His first waking thought is a curse for the treacherous people he left behind. Musing that he won't have to see those traitors again, he catches sight of his new face in a mirror. Staring at his much younger reflection, he comes to terms with his new identity. Overwhelmed with emotion, he takes in his surroundings, confirming that he is truly back on Earth. He revels in the simple luxury of clean, running water, a miracle compared to the contaminated sources he endured. The simple act of lighting a stove with the press of a button brings him immense joy, freeing him from the toil of making campfires. He opens a box of takeout, the smell of familiar food filling him with nostalgia. He stares in wonder at the glorious sight of fried chicken, a delicacy he hasn't seen in 2 decades. With tears in his eyes, he prepares for his first bite. He sits down and quietly begins to savor the long-awaited meal. Overcome with flavor, he tearfully declares that this is what real food tastes like. He weeps with joy, overwhelmed by the return of all the simple comforts he missed so much. Lying down content, he believes he can finally live the normal, peaceful life he has dreamed of for 20 years. His peace is interrupted by a strange red pillar of light outside his window, a stark reminder that 20 years have passed on Earth as well. He stares at the ominous pillar of light and says no matter how difficult and hard it is to adjust, it wouldn't be more horrifying than the other world. After 20 years in another world, Yu-chan-seok begins his new life by enjoying a simple, modern luxury, a hot shower. He blissfully soaks in the hot water, a simple pleasure he hasn't experienced in 2 decades. Next on his list of missed modern comforts is the cool blast of an air conditioner, easily activated with the push of a button. Gazing out at the clear, bright sky over the city, he celebrates his return to Earth, a world he believes is free from the horrors he left behind. Just as he happily contemplates what to do first in the year 2025, his thoughts are violently interrupted by a monster. He lets out a terrified scream as the creature lunges at him. He is shocked and only to be immediately alerted by a real emergency announcement. The broadcast warns that a corrosion rift has appeared within the apartment complex, a term he's never heard before. As the announcement orders all residents to evacuate to the underground shelter, Chan-seok is left utterly confused about what is happening to his world. His confusion turns to terror as his apartment window is suddenly swarmed by a horde of eerie, masked monsters. One of the creatures wastes no time and tries to shatter the glass with its sharp, powerful claws. Ladders in the room slowly descends. Reacting on pure instinct, Chan-seok bolts from his room towards ladders. He flees down the hallway, bewildered by the strange, ape-like creatures relentlessly chasing him. Overwhelmed by the chaos, he can't help but wonder what has happened to Earth during his long absence. He makes a nimble escape from the pursuing horde by climbing through a broken window in the stairwell. Taking a moment to catch his breath, he believes he has finally shaken off the monstrous pursuers. His brief moment of relief is cut short when he discovers he's not alone, spotting a small boy who seems completely unfazed by the situation. He tries to warn the child to get to the shelter, but the boy, Yoon Sung, simply asks if he has seen where the monster went. With unnerving confidence, Yoon Sung declares his intention to kill the monster and casually asks Chan-seok if he wants to join. Chan-seok is left speechless as the boy explains that Earth has been plagued by these rifts and monsters for the past 13 years. Since Yoon Sung refuses to hide in the shelter, Chan-seok finds himself reluctantly tagging along with the monster hunting boy. Still processing the shocking news, Chan-seok attempts to get a clearer picture of the world he's returned to. Yoon Sung confirms that corrosion rifts are mysterious portals that spit out monsters, and no one knows when or where they will appear. Furious, Chan-seok realizes he went through hell to return to Earth, only to find it has become a hell of its own, and he blames the goddess who sent him back. When Yoon Sung questions his lack of knowledge, Chan-seok improvises a flimsy excuse, claiming he was living in America. The boy immediately sees through the lie, citing a recent political scandal involving the US president that made travel to Korea impossible. Chan-seok thinks what he is talking about no. Desperate to change the subject, Chan-seok asks about the boy's favorite hunter, prompting Yoon Sung to enthusiastically yell out the name Lee Se-eun. Yoon Sung proudly explains that Lee Se-eun is the 10th-ranked hunter in the world and is currently dealing with a rift, while Chan-seok mentally congratulates himself for the successful distraction, and is left to ponder the unbelievable reality that normal humans are now fighting monsters, a situation eerily similar to the world he just escaped. Our story begins with a battle-hardened man, newly returned to Earth, admires a hunter's cool greatsword. A young boy named Yoon Sung excitedly tries to show him a video of the famous hunter Lee Se-eun, but is suddenly silenced. Our guy's demeanor shifts instantly as he senses danger, and he curses under his breath while Yoon Sung looks on in confusion. The source of the danger reveals itself, a horde of grotesque monsters creeping into their hiding spot. With a calm, practiced eye, our guy quickly assesses the threat, counting 5 visible monsters and a 6th one hiding from view. He notes that his current body possesses above-average strength and that fighting multiple enemies is familiar territory. His main concern shifts to the terrified boy, whose earlier bravado has completely evaporated in the face of real monsters. Without a proper weapon, he coolly considers his options for dealing with the creatures. He is surprised to feel a familiar energy in the air, realizing with a jolt that it's mana, just like in the world he left behind. Confirming that the mana is identical to what he knew before, a new plan begins to form in his mind. Before the monsters can react, one is hit by a flamboyant, invisible energy unleashed by our protagonist, igniting him from the mask of his head. As the monster ignites, he realizes that while his personal mana reserve is gone, he can draw upon the ambient mana in the air. Effortlessly gathering the blue mana, he shields the astonished Yoon Sung while continuing his counterattack. He smirks, relieved that he can still use the paradox flames engraved on his soul. Despite its reduced strength, he confidently judges his power to be more than enough to handle the immediate threat. All the monsters are instantly reduced to ashes, engulfed by the searing blue flames of its energy, and the Yoon Sung shouts, "Master, that was amazing." He excitedly praises the protagonist's unique skill, but our protagonist says that "I am glad you are not hurt," and asks so they call it a unique skill here. Remembering a tip from a Hunter Academy YouTube channel about confirming kills, Yoon Sung recklessly runs toward the smoldering monster corpses. The protagonist's eyes widen in alarm, knowing the persistent and dangerous nature of his paradox flame. And he shouts a warning that his flames don't extinguish until the target is truly dead, just as a monstrous remnant lunges at the boy. In a flash, protagonist intercepts the attack, and having saved the boy, he gets his attention by simply saying, "Kiddo." With his hand crushing the monster's smoldering remains, he casually admits that he has no idea what YouTube is. He then calmly advises the shaken boy that he should probably stop watching it. Needing a weapon, the man turns to Yoon Song and asks to borrow the staff he is holding. Just as Yoon Song hands over the staff, the sound of more approaching monsters echoes. In an instant, they are completely surrounded by a much larger pack of the masked creatures. Undeterred, Protagonist's eyes gleam with fighting spirit as he prepares to face the horde. He moves with blinding speed, the simple wooden staff becoming a deadly blur in his expert hands. With brutal efficiency, he carves a path through the monsters, tearing them apart with swift strikes. In a flurry of precise and powerful movements, he finishes off the last of the creatures. Yoon Song is left utterly speechless, his eyes wide with awe at the overwhelming display of skill. Catching his breath amidst the carnage, Protagonist is met with Yoon Song's amazed question, "Are you secretly a hunter?" He stares at the blood-soaked floor, disgusted that even after returning to Earth, he cannot escape the stench of battle. Frustrated, he recalls the hell he endured just to earn a moment of peace, a wish that is already being denied. He grimly concludes that if this is what Earth has become, it's no different from the war-torn world he fought so hard to leave. The sound of a commotion from a larger area of the shelter draws their attention. Emerging into a crowd of survivors, Protagonist jokingly asks Yoon Song if grade schoolers are now called little brats. A panicked woman suddenly spots the pair and cries out Yoon Song's name in relief. Yoon Song's mother rushes to her son, profusely thanking the stranger for saving him. Observing her designer clothes and luxury earrings, our guy realizes the boy he just saved comes from a wealthy family. Suddenly, the survivors feel the shelter begin to crumble, sending a wave of panic through the crowd. A massive, monstrous fist smashes through the reinforced wall of the shelter with terrifying force. The wall gives way, debris explodes into the air, and panic ripples through the crowd. A colossal monster lets out a deafening screech, revealing a gaping maw filled with razor-sharp teeth. Panic erupts as the crowd realizes the outer wall has been breached, and everyone flees for their lives. Yoon Song urgently tells our guy that this time, they have to run. However, our guy remains still, lamenting that all he ever wanted was a simple, peaceful life. And frustrated as he thinks of the home he fought so hard to return to. Looking at his scarred hand, he wonders aloud if a simple desire for peace was truly asking for too much. Calling out to the brat, he questions why a kid from a wealthy family, who could live safely in hiding, would still aspire to become a hunter. Yoon Song somberly reveals that his father died in a supposedly safe bunker, teaching him that nowhere on Earth is truly safe. Though he knows he isn't strong and is still scared, he vows to become the strongest hunter and eradicate all the corrosion rifts. With fierce determination, Yoon Song declares his dream to save the entire world. Moved by the boy's conviction, the R guy smiles faintly, assuring Yoon Song that he will indeed become a great hunter. However, he adds a stark reality check, telling the boy that he won't be the one to save the world. As Yoon Song's mother tries to pull him away, he resists, worried about leaving the mysterious man behind. And his eyes widen in disbelief at what our guy does next. He cries out, "Mister," as he watches the man walk toward the danger everyone else is fleeing. Yoon Song can only watch, stunned into silence by the man's incredible bravery. Our guy calmly states, "Tiat, because I'm going to do it." Yoon Song watches in awe, realizing the man is taking on the impossible burden of saving the world himself. With the faint smile of a seasoned veteran, our guy declares that saving the world is a job for someone who's done it before. The protagonist recaps his 20-year battle in another world and his immediate confrontation with a corrosion rift upon returning to Earth. He reflects on surviving the rift and making a grand promise to a young boy that he would save the world. Despite his epic backstory and heroic promise, he has spent his time doing absolutely nothing but gaming. As a victory screen flashes on his monitor, he seems unimpressed with his latest win. He nonchalantly declares his video game victory was too easy. He cracks open a can of soda, a simple pleasure he couldn't enjoy in the other world. He mockingly recalls his own bold declaration, "Someone who's saved the world once can save it again." He admits that despite his confident speech, his desire to save the world didn't last very long. Games, abundant food, and convenient technology I could only dream of in Otherworld, and a system where you can do anything with just one touch. Rationalizing that there are already hunters to save the world, he decides to order some delivery food instead. A harsh reality check hits as he discovers his bank account is nearly empty. He has already spent all the severance pay of the body's original owner, Yuchan Seok. With the money gone, he realizes he cannot find a normal job to support himself. He laments that due to the constant appearance of corrosion rifts, most companies are going out of business, making unemployment the new norm. Staring out the window, he resigns himself to the fact that in this unstable modern society, no one is hiring. Just as he is losing hope, a hunter recruitment ad on his phone catches his eye. Figuring that he has plenty of experience in this line of work, becoming a hunter is his best option, which leads him to the Hunter Association. At the Hunter Association, he overhears an overexcited candidate being told that the selection process is now just a formality. Another candidate smugly explains that these days, you get selected just by showing you have a unique skill. This same candidate looks down on the other applicants, dismissing them all as a bunch of small fries. A mysterious woman with long black hair arrives, wondering aloud if her presence will make them too famous. The arrogant candidates are shocked into silence, recognizing the newcomer as the famous hunter, Lee Se-yoon. Se-yoon, the 10th-ranked hunter in the world and a partner of the Janabi Guild, makes her grand entrance, silencing the room. The other candidates are stunned, wondering why a top-tier hunter from the Janabi Guild would personally attend a simple selection event. Her subordinate checks his tablet, identifying their target, Han Sang-ah, a Hunter Academy graduate with electrokinesis. Se-yoon jokes that she could probably charge batteries, but his subordinate solemnly replies that she is a candidate, not a generator. She expresses her skepticism about the new recruit, nonchalantly saying, maybe not, when her subordinate praises Sang-ah's skills. Her spiky-haired subordinate gets fired up, that hunting in corrosion rifts is real combat, not academy practice, and argues that academy excellence doesn't guarantee success in actual combat, and she offers him candy for making her point. The subordinate elaborates that academy students who have only had safe training, like Sang-ah, will struggle to adapt to the real thing. As the first match is about to begin, she worries about being away from his team for a whole week just for this scouting mission. She focused on her task, silently challenges the candidates to raise their value enough to be worth her time. The tournament announcer is taken aback, noticing an interesting candidate who is not from the Hunter Academy. He exclaims that this candidate is just a civilian, armed with a simple pipe-like weapon. He notes that a non-academy participant is completely unprecedented in the hunter selection. He wonders what kind of guts this civilian must have to stand on the competitive stage. The protagonist, now introduced as Yu-chan Seok, enters the arena, admitting to himself that he is still not used to his new name. The rules of the match are laid out, only association-provided weapons are allowed, and life-threatening injuries are prohibited. Chan Seok reaffirms his new goal. As a hunter, he must save this world that is destined to fall. His blonde, spiky-haired opponent smirks, finding the situation unbelievable, while he reminds himself that he also needs to live and eat well. To achieve his goals, he knows he needs to get good results in the tournament as the announcer calls both candidates to their positions. The announcer dramatically raises his hand, signaling the start of the match, and, with a loud shout of fight, the battle officially begins. The blonde spearmaster immediately lunges, laughing maniacally that his opponent cannot even gather mana. Staring down the attack with an unimpressed look, Chan Seok listens to his opponent to consider it an honor to lose, and proudly declares himself the undefeated spearmaster of the Hunter Academy as he unleashes a fiery attack. Chan Seok's eyes narrow, easily tracking the incoming spear thrust, and plants his spear on the stage ground ready to fight with bare hands. The spearmaster's attack hits nothing but air, leaving him spinning in confusion. He frantically looks around, shocked that his opponent completely vanished before his eyes. Chan Seok suddenly appears behind him, taunting him for being pretty clumsy with that spear. Before the spearmaster can react, he lands a brutal punch to his gut. The impact sends a shockwave through the spearmaster's body. Before the Supreme Master could even react, he unleashed another punch at lightning speed. The spearmaster's eyes roll back and his teeth shatter as the powerful blow knocks him senseless. Before his opponent can even ask already, Chan Seok explains that he used his bare hands because a spear would have caused too much damage. He is genuinely shocked at his opponent's weakness, wondering if this is truly the average level for hunters. Watching from the stands, Se-yoon is intrigued by the unexpected outcome, murmuring, "What's with that guy, that guy?" She confirms Chan Seok's file says his previous job was at a logistics company, and her subordinate notes that he has almost no mana, and theorizes that Chan Seok must have been lucky, as he would need to accumulate mana for a long time to generate such power. She simply offers him another piece of candy. Taking the candy as a hint to shut up, the subordinate listens as she calmly states her conclusion: Chan Seok is intentionally not accumulating mana. Back in the ring, Chan Seok decides that to prove his abilities, he needs to end this decisively. His downed opponent can only stammer in disbelief at how easily he was beaten. He coolly reassures him not to worry, as the next blow will not be a fatal wound. The spearmaster's eyes widen in terror as his fist descends. Before he lands his blow, his opponent loses consciousness and collapses to the ground. The match ends, and the announcer declares him the winner. In the stands, other candidates gossip in disbelief about the shocking upset. Se-yoon's eyes sharpen, her interest in Chan Seok growing. The other candidates continue to watch, baffled by the strange new contender. Deciding she has seen enough from the sidelines, she grins, resolving to see his real skills for herself. She stands up to leave, telling her questioning subordinate that she needs to see the association president. Chan Seo continues to effortlessly defeat his opponents, internally complaining about how weak all these rookie hunters are. As he dispatches foe after foe, he wonders what on earth the Hunter Academy is teaching these fighters. Looking over the crowd of weaklings, he exasperatedly wonders if there is a single decent opponent in the entire tournament. A new challenger finally steps into the ring. The other candidates perk up, commenting on the new opponent's appearance and saying they will finally get to see a real fight. The announcer introduces the final candidate, Han Sung-ah, pitting the mysterious super rookie against the Academy's top graduate. He sizes up his new opponent, beginning his assessment. He acknowledges that Sung-ah has gathered the most mana out of anyone he has seen all day. Sung-ah confidently tells Chan Seok his luck has run out, but he just sarcastically asks if that is a generic line they teach at the Academy. She assumes that because he only throws punches, he must not have a unique skill. Her eyes glow with power as she warns him that she will not go easy on him. He coolly thinks to himself that he does have a unique skill, but he is not using it because she would get seriously hurt. She readies herself for battle, letting out a determined breath. As the fight begins, she immediately uses her electrical power. She draws her electrified blade with incredible speed, unleashing her attack as Chan Seok watches intently. A massive wave of electrical energy shoots across the arena toward him. She is confident in her lightning-fast attack, but he effortlessly dodges by simply jumping straight up, letting the attack pass harmlessly beneath him. She is completely stunned, unable to believe he dodged a lightning attack with a simple jump. He finds her technique interesting, deducing that she created a railgun effect by magnetizing her sword and scabbard. Landing gracefully, he tells her that while her skills are the best so far, she missed the most important thing. He explains that in her focus on attacking quickly, she neglected to think about when to attack. His analysis reveals her mistake. To accelerate the sword draw, she laid down a visible magnetic rail in the air. He smirks, pointing out that no one but an idiot would get hit by an attack with such a telegraphed path. Furious at being called out, she tells him not to get cocky and prepares to attack again. She lunges forward, shouting that she can beat him even without her special technique. He easily dodges again, calling her an idiot for thinking he would get hit by this slower attack after dodging her fastest one. Enraged, she pushes her power to its absolute limit. She unleashes a chaotic storm of electrical energy, filling the arena. He realizes she is overdoing it, forcing herself to scrape together every last bit of mana she has. He knows that if she keeps this up, her body is going to be wrecked by the strain. Deciding the fight has gone on long enough, he tells her it was cool, but that they should stop here, much to her surprise. As he rushes in, he gives her a simple instruction. If it hurts, raise your left hand. He closes the distance in an instant and lands devastating body punch in her gut. She gasps in pain, completely overwhelmed by the physical assault. He clenches his fist, having delivered the decisive strikes. The barrage of punches continues. He winds up for one final, powerful blow. The final punch connects, sending a visible shockwave through her body. Her eyes go white as she is knocked completely unconscious. She collapses to the floor, her katana clattering beside her. The other candidates are in utter disbelief that someone could so thoroughly overwhelm the Academy's top student. He reflects that while she was more skilled than the others, her reliance on mana and neglect of physical training was her downfall. He turns away, but then notices movement and wonders if she is actually getting up for more. Sung-ah, though defeated, weakly raises her left hand. The announcer rushes to her side as she signals her surrender. Chan Seok is amused and surprised, thinking to himself, I told her to raise it, and she really did? With the final match concluded, the arena begins to clear out. The announcer receives an urgent message through his earpiece, reacting with shock. He grabs the attention of the crowd, announcing that the tournament schedule has been changed. He tells the winner, Yu Chan Soyuk, to take a short break, leaving him confused as he thought the tournament was over. The announcer reveals that Chan Seok will now have a special fight against an active hunter, stunning the audience. Seyun's subordinates realize she went through with her plan, getting special permission from the association president for the match. Chan Seok sees the audience's excited reaction and deduces that his surprise opponent must be a skilled hunter. He understands this is a test of his abilities, a situation he is all too familiar with from his time in the other world. A sword tip scrapes the ground as his new opponent approaches, addressing him by name. The mysterious challenger apologizes for the sudden appearance, explaining it was the only way to confirm his skills. Lee Se-yoon formally introduces herself as a member of the Janabi Guild, brandishing her massive greatsword. She tells him the stage has been too small for him so far and directly challenges him to a match. He recalls her reputation as the 10th ranked hunter in the world while she tells him he can refuse the sudden offer. He senses the immense aura coming from her, recognizing her as a real pro and knowing it will be a tough fight even with Spear in his current weaker body. Despite the overwhelming odds, a confident smile spreads across his face. He immediately accepts her challenge, saying, "Alright, let's do it now," which catches the announcer off guard. He explains that he has not used much stamina, and Se-yoon notes approvingly that he is fired up for the fight. As a defeated Sang-ah is carried away on a stretcher, he resolves to get the best possible results, knowing this fight is the key. He picks up one of the association-provided spears, believing she is the perfect opponent to test his limits. With a weapon in hand and a grin on his face, he readies himself for the real test, wondering, "Shall I raise my value?" The exhibition match begins with a flash, shocking the announcer and the audience. Lee Se-yoon immediately goes on the offensive, swinging her massive blade with incredible force. Yu Chan-seok grits his teeth as he barely manages to parry the powerful blow with his spear. Struggling under the immense pressure, he can't believe a woman's body can possess such overwhelming power. As he manages to deflect her attack and push her back a little, he notes internally that his speed has dropped considerably since the fight started, and he is frustrated that while he can see openings, his current body lacks the physical ability to exploit them. She taunts him, admitting she's surprised he's lasted for 30 minutes when she only expected him to hold out for 5. She confidently strides toward the exhausted Chan-seok, ready to end the prolonged fight. Promising to make it easy on him, she raises her greatsword for a final, decisive strike. He laments his lack of stored mana, and how thin it is in the atmosphere. With no other choice, he reluctantly decides to unleash his trump card, the Paradox Flame. Se-yoon's eyes widen in surprise when he deftly dodges her attack, which pulverizes the ground where he stood just moments before. He lands gracefully, leaving a stunned Se-yoon to watch from a distance. Baffled, she questions how he could have dodged a swing that should have been impossible to avoid. As a mysterious dark flame envelops him, she demands to know what the power is. He calmly reveals the name of his unique ability, Paradox Flame. He explains that this is his most trusted specialty, a power he used constantly before returning to Earth. Pointing to his unscathed clothes, he clarifies that unlike normal fire, this black flame cannot burn physical matter. Instead, he explains, the flame burns abstract concepts as fuel, though his current power level prevents him from burning complex concepts like memories or reason. With his target concept chosen, he dashes forward to demonstrate his power. She is shocked, realizing that her opponent has suddenly become much faster. He strikes with lightning speed, but she parries his attack and he declares that he will burn the concept of fatigue. The 10th ranked hunter is astonished, wondering how he managed to recover his stamina in an instant. She unleashes a relentless barrage of strikes, and his spear slits from his grasp. She notices the mana concentration in the arena fluctuating wildly and realizes it must be his doing. He elaborates that his Paradox Flame releases mana as it burns abstract concepts. He explains the self-sustaining loop. He uses mana to ignite the flame, which burns his fatigue to generate even more mana. With a firm step, he declares that this creates an endless cycle of energy. She closes the distance, but he is ready to show her the true nature of his specialty. He deftly dodges her attack, which shatters the ground where he had stood just moments before. Growing weary from the endless battle, she asks if he intends to keep this up indefinitely, and compares his tenacity to someone clinging to another's leg, refusing to let go. Smirking, he reveals that his specialty is a war of attrition, and confidently states he can keep going. He cheekily asks if she happens to like guys who don't know when to give up. She retorts that she absolutely hates them. The nature of Paradox Flame is revealed. Like ash from a fire, it leaves behind a residue of concepts that cannot be burned again. After an astounding 4 hours and 17 minutes, the limit of the Paradox Flame is reached. Completely drained, he lies defeated on the arena floor, begging for mercy as she stands over him and says, "Wanna go for more?" As the announcer declares her the victor via forfeit, she casually pulls out a lollipop. Watching from the stands, her subordinates recognize the lollipop with a sense of dread. Impressed by his performance, she offers the lollipop and her business card to him as a reward. He examines the card, learning she is Lee Se-yoon, a partner hunter from Janabi LLC. She tells him to call her later to discuss the details, leaving him intrigued. The announcer officially concludes the hunter selection trials. Winner Chan-seok come on the stage and receive your reward while he ponders if Janabi is a hunter agency. He takes a mighty crunch out of the lollipop she gave him. Later, he marvels at the advanced technology of the smartphone that serves as his new hunter license, noting its various features. As he scrolls through the device, a voice calls out his name, interrupting his exploration. An intimidatingly large and muscular man approaches, complimenting him on looking better in person than on camera. Chan Seok, noting the man must be over 2 meters tall, asks who he is as the stranger offers a business card. The man introduces himself as Yoon Song-hyun of the Taebae Guild and makes a direct offer for him to join his team. Song-hyun confidently promises that with enough experience under his guidance, he will undoubtedly shine, and our guy kinda believes his words. Chan Seok recalls Se-yoon's offer, realizing he has another potential opportunity to consider. Remembering his prior engagement with her, he politely tells Song-hyun that he needs more time to make a decision. Song-hyun laughs, claiming he wasn't expecting an immediate answer. However, his friendly demeanor shifts as he places a heavy, imposing hand on Chan Seok's shoulder. Leaning in with a menacing glare, he warns Chan Seok to think his decision through very carefully. After the thinly veiled threat, Song-hyun departs with a casual, "See you around." Thoroughly put off by the aggressive recruitment tactic, Chan Seok immediately decides he is definitely skipping Taebaek. Having made up his mind, he calls Se-yoon to arrange their meeting. She directs him to a cafe called The Hut inside the Hunter Association building. He finds the cafe, puzzled by its rather rustic and unusual name. A cheerful waitress greets him with a warm, "Welcome to the hut." Se-yoon waves him over, welcoming him to her table in the surprisingly pleasant cafe. He comments on the strange name, and she asks, did something happen? He explains that a massive man from another guild had just tried to recruit him. She correctly identifies the man as Yoon Song-hyun, explaining that his expressed interest has likely deterred other guilds from approaching. He cleverly points out that by her logic, her own guild, Janabi, should also be staying away. Coolly, she tells him she has no plans to recruit him into her guild, leaving him bewildered. Then why, he asks. Instead of offering a guild contract, she suggests he would be better off working as a freelancer, and he realizes that he doesn't necessarily have to belong to a guild. She explains that Song-hyun's offer was likely for a low-ranking junior position within the Taebaek Guild. Unfamiliar with the terminology, he asks her to explain the different hunter ranks. She responds, "That's right, you weren't from the Hunter Academy, were you?" She lays out the standard guild hierarchy, which is divided into 3 ranks: junior, senior, and partner. She illustrates the structure, showing how junior and senior hunters operate as salaried employees under the leadership of partner hunters. Partner hunters, she clarifies, function more like business owners, receiving a share of the guild's profits instead of a fixed salary. He astutely compares the guild model to a law firm, a comparison she confirms is accurate. Crucially, she informs him that one doesn't have to climb the corporate ladder to become a partner hunter. He quickly grasps the concept. If he becomes famous and achieves impressive results on his own, guilds will approach him directly with lucrative partner offers. She affirms his understanding with a cheerful, "Exactly," and offers him another piece of candy, much to his confusion. He raises a valid point, noting that as a newcomer with no connections or experience, getting worthwhile requests will be a major hurdle. With a knowing smile, she offers to help him secure his first jobs, completely free of charge. Still munching on the candy, a skeptical Chan Seok questions her motives for helping him so much. She reveals her long-term strategy. By helping him now, she hopes he'll remember Janabi favorably in the future, effectively putting him in her debt. To get him started, she slides a folder across the table, offering him his first potential freelance job. The request is from Incheon City and concerns Gyeodongdo Island, where a corrosion zone formed after a failed mission 2 years ago. So he asks, "I just have to go and get rid of this," but she clarifies that the job isn't to clear the existing rift, but to patrol the island and eliminate any new ones that appear. He reviews the mission details, noting the modest pay of 5 million won upfront and 15 million upon successful completion. He places the documents down, remarking that for a potentially life-threatening job, the pay isn't particularly great. She tells him that if the pay feels unfair, the solution is to get stronger and more famous, at which point money will flow to him effortlessly. With the terms laid out, she presses him for his final answer. He takes a moment to seriously consider her surprising offer. Elsewhere, in a moving car, an unseen boss asks Se-yoon over the phone about the new recruit. She reports that Yuchon Seok is a civilian who cleared a weapons mandatory tournament barehanded, earning a simple, "not bad," from her boss. She interjects, emphasizing that he impressively lasted 4 whole hours against her, even with her power limited. The boss questions the feat, but she defends its significance, citing her decade of experience in hellish environments. She admits that while she should have been able to toy with him, his 4-hour endurance was nothing short of godly. She makes a bold declaration, stating that even if she were reborn, she doubts she would ever encounter another monsters like him. The scene shifts to the shores of Gyeodongdo Island in Incheon City, the location of Chan Seok's first mission. The boss on the phone says, but no matter how much you praise him. He raises a valid concern, noting that the Gyodongdo mission specifically requested hunters with prior experience. He questions whether the rookie will be able to hold his own when teamed up with veteran hunters. She says, if that's the concern, don't worry, boss. While Yu Chan-seok is holding his sword on the island ready for the fight. She confidently reassures her boss, revealing she has paired him with a reliable partner, and boss says you are the brains of Operation in Janabi, so I will trust you. The boss poses a final question. What would he be like if he were to reach her level? She says you might not like to hear this, but she declares that if Yu Chan-seok ever reaches her level of power, he'll be strong enough to take down even her boss. The chapter opens with a flashback to 1 month ago, where a delivery driver is searching for apartment 56. Ringing the doorbell, the driver complains about the weight of the mysterious package he's carrying. After making the delivery, he checks his list for the next address. The door to 506 opens as Yu Chan-seok announces, "It's here, Taima." He stands before his new acquisition, a massive case, and remarks on its unbelievable length. With a click, he unlatches the case to reveal its contents. He proudly holds his brand new custom-made spear, which he takes from the case, declaring it to be in perfect condition. He also reveals an elixir, a vial of condensed mana used by hunters for emergencies. Unlike typical hunters who absorb and store mana from the atmosphere, a process the elixir speeds up. He explains that his method of mana manipulation is entirely different. He skips the storage phase, directly absorbing and utilizing the limitless mana in the air around him. This unique process also has the benefit of gradually strengthening his mana channels over time. However, since his channels are currently too small for high power output, he decides to store the elixir's mana as a temporary boost. With a month of training ahead, he is confident he can achieve the power level he needs for his mission. Flashing forward to the present, the story takes us to the mission's location, Gyodongdo Island in Incheon. Hunters line up at the dock to check in before deploying to the monster-infested island. He presents his phone, displaying a QR code for quick identity verification. An official confirms his identity and assigns Hunter Yu Chan-seok to Squad 8. He makes his way toward a makeshift sign marking the gathering point for Squad 8. He joins the other hunters who are muttering about their fears and the potential pay. A familiar voice calls out, looking for the Squad 8 assembly area. He turns around as Han Sang-ah calls his name. He says to her, "Your hair. It seems to have settled down," and she responds, "This is my normal hair. It was just static electricity back then." Happy to be on the same team, she suggests they cooperate, but he bluntly shuts her down, asking why he should. She humbly admits he's stronger and wants to learn from him, prompting him to sarcastically remark that his shoulders might fall off from awe. Completely missing the sarcasm, she expresses concern for his chronic dislocation, which makes him realize she has absolutely no sense of humor. Their awkward reunion is cut short as a mission official calls for their attention, and he announces that with all of Squad A present, the mission briefing is about to begin. He says he'll explain basic terms for any first-timers, causing Chan-seok to wonder if that comment was directed at him. The briefing covers the classification of corrosion rifts, ranging from dangerous class 1 to unclassified. Additionally, the first corrosion rift to appear in a specific area is given the additional name Alpha. He specifically warns them to avoid the Alpha Rift at a northern church, which is growing stronger despite its unclassified status. Their primary mission is to patrol the Yupnairi and Gyodongmyeon areas to locate and eliminate any new rifts. Another hunter complains under his breath, questioning the wisdom of sending a squad with a rookie on an elimination mission. As their boat reaches the shore, the official formally welcomes them to Gyodongdo Island.v. While his squadmates nervously comment on the island's chilling energy, he remains completely unfazed. As they step onto the island, he internally dismisses the other hunters as overly dramatic. The official advises them to contact the offshore control room if they require assistance. With a final send-off, he wishes the hunters the best of luck on their mission. Once on the island, the squad discusses their plan, suggesting they scout the 2 patrol zones over the next week. Chan-seok interrupts, pulling up a map and proposing a more strategic approach, setting up a base at Hwagyesa Temple. One of the veteran hunters scoffs at the idea, dismissing Chan-seok as a rookie he's never seen before. Chan-seok calmly explains the logic behind his plan. The temple provides a perfect vantage point over both target areas and offers shelter. The veteran hunters say to him, "There are plenty of places near. What if we get surrounded after needlessly climb a mountain?" He responds, "We are not fighting with thousands of enemies. How can you possibly be surrounded there?" But the hunters refuse to follow an inexperienced rookie's orders, leading him to sigh at the predictable foolishness of those who defy logic. And they say to him then, "Why don't you just act separately?" Without another word, he turns and heads for the temple on his own. A small group of 3, including Chan Seok and Han Sang-a, splits from the main squad. Chan Seok notes that while he expected Sang-a to follow, he's curious about the third man, whose mana feels slightly stronger than hers. He directly addresses the man, Kim Min-jae, and asks why he decided to come with them. Min-jae claims he was worried about 2 rookies going off alone, a surprisingly decent sentiment that amuses Chan Seok. Suddenly, Chan Seok senses flare as he detects an unseen threat ahead. He abruptly stops, planting his feet and halting the group's advance. He puts up a hand, silently signaling for Min-jae and Sang-a to wait. He quietly instructs a confused Min-jae to take a peek over the other side of the ridge. Min-jae cautiously peers around a large rock, his expression turning to one of pure shock. He sees a massive horde of goblin-like corrosion creatures swarming in the forest. Terrified, Min-jae insists they retreat, estimating there are at least 50 monsters. Chan Seok calmly tells him to relax and asks about his unique skill. This horrifies Min-jae, who can't fathom fighting such a large group. With an intense gaze, he reminds him that fighting monsters is a hunter's duty and demands to know his unique skill. Min-jae nervously reveals his unique skill is Flame, and his most powerful attack is Fireball. Without hesitation, Chan Seok formulates a plan and tells a stunned Min-jae to prepare to attack on his signal. Sang-a asks, "What should I do?" Min-jae turns to her, asking if she's really going along with this reckless plan. He argues that facing 50 monsters with just 3 people is suicide, especially since it's Chan Seok's first mission, and says we should radio other hunters, but Chan Seok coolly explains that calling for backup is pointless, as it won't arrive in time, and points out their position deep inland on the map, far from the other hunters who are still searching along the coast. He adds that if they wait for the creatures to scatter, they'll become an even greater threat to the other hunters. Min-jae realizes the grim truth in Chan Seok's words, especially since the other hunters might not even respond to their call after their earlier argument. Having convinced him, Chan Seok declares that their only option is to deal with the horde themselves using a surprise attack. He quickly sketches out a strategy in the dirt. Min-jae will initiate with a fireball to the center, and he will block the flanks and Han Sang-ha will. Min-jae is left speechless, wondering how a supposed rookie could possess such profound tactical knowledge and battle experience, and who in the world is he? The horde of corrosion creatures remains completely oblivious to the impending danger. At Chan Seok's command, Min-jae springs into action, launching a massive fireball. The fiery projectile hurtles towards the unsuspecting monsters. The creatures look up in confusion just moments before the devastating impact. A huge explosion tears through the center of the monster formation, incinerating dozens. Min-jae warns that he needs time to cast another fireball, and Chan Seok calmly tells him to fire as soon as he can. Acknowledging the order, he begins gathering mana for his next attack. With the initial ambush complete, Chan Seok prepares to engage the survivors head-on. He dives into the chaotic swarm, explaining that true battle efficiency comes from a clear division of roles, as he pierces through the horde of monsters with his fast, whirling spear. As monster rushes into attack, he masterfully wields his spear, vowing to keep them occupied and away from Min-jae until the next fireball is ready. As a monster screeches, he acknowledges that he can't possibly block every single one by himself. He smirks, reiterating that this is exactly why assigning roles is so crucial to his strategy. Just as a creature breaks through his defense, it's immediately zapped by a bolt of lightning. Sang-a reveals her role in the plan, providing vital support by picking off any monsters that get past him. At the perfect moment, Min-jae shouts that his second fireball is ready. Chan Seok grins, telling him to fire at will as he prepares to leap clear of the blast zone. Min-jae unleashes his fully charged fireball, aiming to wipe out the remaining creatures. A colossal explosion engulfs the battlefield, finishing off the horde. Chan Seok lands safely, gripping his spear after the successful maneuver. Chan Seok commands Min-jae to kill them both. As the smoke clears from the battlefield, the aftermath is revealed. Chan Seok plunges his spear deep into the ground, and he looks towards the ashes of monsters. He finally says that everyone performed well. In a shocking twist, Min-jae stands behind them, pointing a gun directly at them. Min-jae quickly diffuses the tension, explaining with a smile that he was just trying to get past him, while Chan Seok thinks, why did he suddenly pull out the strap? It turns out the gun is actually a device for implanting microchips into monster corpses. Chan Seok asks, "Are you implanting a microchip?" and Min-jae explains he has a contract with a junk dealer who collects the tagged corpses after the mission. He clarifies that recovering valuable byproducts from the bulky, heavy corpses is too difficult for hunters to do themselves. Using a cute diagram, he shows how junk dealers collect all the tagged and valuable loot after the hunters are finished. The dealers then appraise and sell the items, splitting the profits with the hunter who placed the tag. Chanseo questions the system's trustworthiness, and Min-jae admits that finding a good dealer is crucial. And he praises Chanseok's incredible performance against the monster horde, but their celebration is cut short by a sudden tremor. A massive demonic creature bursts through the trees, interrupting their conversation and shattering the ground. Chanseok reacts instantly, tackling Min-jae to the ground to shield him from the flying debris. After that, asks Min-jae if he's okay. As Senga rushes to their side, an annoyed Min-jae asks what's happening now. Chanseok sizes up the new threat, quickly assessing the situation. He identifies the powerful new monster as some kind of mid-boss. He curses under his breath, realizing the situation has just escalated. The creature, the apparent leader of the previous monsters, lets out a low growl. Recognizing the immense mana radiating from the beast, Chanseok orders his teammates not to interfere. He says if it's after us three, then these two will never be able to escape, but Minja protests, suggesting a pincer attack to buy time and escape, knowing they can't take it on. Chanseok screams at them to get back, asking if they want to go home in a body bag. His terrifying outburst shocks both Minja and Sanga into silence. Chanseok explains it's better for him to fight alone, as he can use his paradox flame without worrying about friendly fire. Standing his ground, he confidently challenges the Bat Bastard to a one-on-one fight. The battle begins at the Blue Mountainous. Min-jae says shouldn't we be helping him, he looks like he is in trouble. She tells him there's no need, explaining that while it looks like Chanseok is being pushed back, the reality is that he hasn't been hit a single time. She looks on with focused intensity, realizing there's more to the fight than meets the eye. She notes that he's effortlessly dodging attacks she would struggle with, while simultaneously launching his own counterattacks. She's baffled by the mysterious black flames that erupt every time his spear strikes the monster. She observes that as the black flame's output increases, the monster's movements become noticeably slower. She realizes that what initially looked like a struggle is actually Chanseok toying with his powerful opponent, and stares in disbelief, wondering how a fellow rookie hunter can possess such impossible skill. Chanseok deftly sidesteps another powerful blow from the monster. He continues to weave through its attacks with superhuman agility. In a surprising move, he tosses his spear high into the air. Min-jae and Sung-ah watch in shock as Chanseok, now disarmed, faces the monster. Sung-ah screams for him to watch out as the monster lunges at him. The monster closes in, its massive jaws ready to snap him in two. Chanseok remains perfectly calm as the creature's body begins to burn in flames. The mid-boss crashes to the ground, its strength completely drained by the paradox flame. As his spear falls back to the ground and pierces the monster's body, he is surprised that it can still move, even after he burned away all its strength. With a determined glint in his eye, he declares that he'll finish it off for good. Min-jae and Sung-ah look on, stunned by the sudden turn of events. Min-jae struggles to comprehend what just happened, as the monster is now down despite Chanseok appearing to have been on the defensive. After finishing off the beast, Chanseok calls out to a stunned Min-jae. He asks if it's normal for such a powerful monster to appear here, and Min-jae confirms that it could be possible if this were a corrosion zone with a rift that was at least rated grade 3. Chanseok recalls the briefing where the island's rift was designated unclassified, the lowest tier. He concludes that the rift must have evolved to a grade 3, much to his teammates' shock. Sung-ah tells at the briefing, Chanseok tells her to think rationally, pointing out that a grade 3 rift is the only explanation for their situation. Minja panics, pointing out the huge difference in danger between an unclassified rift and a grade 3 rift. It's like night and day. If that's true, then... He realizes with horror that if Chanseok is right, very few hunters will survive the mission, and desperately pleads with Chanseok to use his skills to save the other hunters, but is met with a flat rejection. And he asks, but why? Chanseok coldly explains that he has limits and cannot possibly save every hunter on the island. He reminds them their mission is to handle corrosion rifts, not save other hunters, adding that death is an expected risk of the job. Sanga challenges him, asking what he would want if he were in their desperate situation. And she asks if he wouldn't feel resentful and beg to be saved. He asks so he should feel compassion for the others. He states that he's not talking about feelings, but about the inevitable outcome. He flashes back to a brutal memory, explaining that some deaths are unavoidable, and no amount of feelings can change that. He states bluntly, "You die," warning his teammates not to be swayed by desperate situations, and concludes his harsh lesson, telling them they can't survive in this world with a sentimental mindset. Later that night, the team arrives at the relative safety of an abandoned temple. After a quick sweep, Chanseok confirms the building is secure and free of corrupted beings. He asks Min-jae, "Can you see anything?" Min-jae responds, "It's dark, so nothing special," and points out that he can see the lights of other hunters scattered across the island. Chanseo quietly reflects on how dangerous using lights is, as it reveals one's location to any nearby threats. He knows that if another mid-boss appears, those hunters will be easy targets. Deciding to at least send a warning, he messages all hunters about the rift's possible upgrade to Grade 3 and advises against using lights. Back with his team, he starts planning their next move. Minjae confirms that if they destroy the core of the corrosion rift, the corrupted zone and all its beings will vanish. Chanseo processes this information, realizing the solution is quite simple. He decides that he just has to destroy the corrosion rift himself. While Sang-ah rests, exhausted from the day's events, and Minjae dozes off nearby, Chanseok sets up a proximity alarm to alert them to any approaching monsters. Believing the alarm will keep his teammates safe, Chanseok prepares to head out alone. Having confirmed the Alpha Rift's location during the briefing, he leaps into the forest, confident his plan will go smoothly. Suddenly, his senses flare, alerting him to an unexpected presence nearby, and he pauses to fully comprehend the situation. He grimaces, realizing he just jinxed himself with his overconfidence. A low growl echoes from the darkness in front of him. Recognizing the familiar aura, he summons his power, assuming it's the same monster from before. However, upon getting a closer look, he realizes a massive, drooling purple beast looms before him, a creature whose face he has never seen. In the Gyeodongdo Island Situation Room, panic erupts. An operator reports losing the signals from Team 5's hunters, they're presumed dead, and also reports that the monsters are using organized tactics. Team 3 has suffered a casualty. The situation manager questions how this could happen in a supposedly unclassified rift, and declares an emergency, ordering his team to activate the emergency contact network and request urgent reinforcements. As the chaos escalates, an operator startles the manager, reporting that an unidentified individual is approaching the Alpha Corrosion Rift. The manager frantically orders his team to identify and stop the rogue hunter, but the operator can't get a lock on their identity. The lone hunter is identified as Yu Chanseok from Team 8, the very person who first recognized the rift's upgrade. He races through the forest. Believing Chanseok might hold the key to this unprecedented crisis, the manager demands they connect to his terminal to confirm he's alive, and if anyone has an answer, it has to be him. The moment they connect, the control room is greeted by the sound of Chanseok screaming. Still on the open comms, Chanseok shouts in disbelief at the creature's overwhelming speed, barely managing to survive its assault. He furiously berates the staff for their intel failure, threatening to carve rifts into their faces, while the operators debate whether to mute him. After the tirade, a subordinate dryly confirms to the manager that despite the screaming and threats, Yu Chanseok is still alive. Alone in the wilderness, Chanseok assesses the dire situation. He realizes his paradox flame in its current state isn't powerful enough to kill the beast. He recognizes that his usual strategy of whittling down an enemy with the flame before finishing it with his spear is failing against this monster. As the beast lunges and follows him, he acknowledges that this creature simply will not go down. He deduces the problem. By drawing on too much of the island's mana to defeat the giant bat earlier, he severely weakened his paradox flame. Unable to leave the island, he knows he must find a new, potent source of mana if he wants to survive. His search pays off as he quickly locates a powerful-looking ley line deep within the forest. He leaps toward the mana source, leading the enraged beast on a high-speed chase through the woods. Glancing back at his pursuer, he taunts the beast to keep up. A manic grin spreads across his face. He's not just running, he has something he needs to test. Back in the Situation Room, an operator reports that they've lost Yu Chanseok's GPS signal. The manager's face falls in despair as he realizes the grim truth. Hunter Yu Chanseok has entered the Alpha Corrosion Rift. Having successfully lured the beast inside, he observes that the rift's internal landscape is surprisingly clean and stable. Slightly unnerved, he wonders how massive higher-grade rifts must be if this is what an unclassified or Grade 3 rift looks like. Before he can ponder further, the footfalls of the giant purple beast echo behind him as it enters the rift. With the tour of the rift complete, he turns to the beast and rhetorically asks if it's time to end their relationship. Standing before the towering monster, he declares with cold confidence that he's not the clingy type. The beast lets out a furious roar, ready to finish their confrontation once and for all. Chanseok prepares to unleash his trump card, contemplating a major drawback of his Paradox Flame skill. He reveals its dangerous flaw. The flame spreads to every living being around him, with the sole exception of himself. And even if it's an ally, if he loses control, the ability becomes completely unusable. But for now, that's a risk he's willing to take. He deftly dodges the beast's attack, positioning himself for a counter. And he summons the raw purple-black energy of the Paradox Flame into his hand and unleashes it towards monster body. The beast is immediately engulfed in the volatile, life-draining aura of the flame. He says, when he fights completely alone, the flame's greatest drawback is entirely irrelevant. With the beast trapped in his draining aura, he declares that the real fight is just beginning. A brilliant blue light erupts from Chanseok's chest as he begins to absorb the beast's siphoned energy. He's stolen mana surges through his very bones, empowering him from the inside out. The absorbed mana spreads throughout his body, widening and reinforcing his mana pathways. He exhales as the new power revitalizes his depleted reserves. Feeling the surge of strength, he grins. The mana absorption is even more efficient than he'd anticipated. The giant beast lets out a pained shriek as the paradox flame continues to drain its life force. Suddenly, a strange energy pulse emanates from the beast. Chanseok immediately understands the beast's desperate gambit. It's calling for backup. Just as he predicted, a horde of winged monsters identical to the ones from before materializes within the rift. Standing confidently, he acknowledges that the beast successfully called for reinforcements. However, he dismisses the threat. With his newfound power, trying to overwhelm him with numbers is meaningless. Now empowered, he stands calmly amidst a vortex of dark energy, ready to face the horde. Feeling several times stronger than before, he begins searching for the rift's core. He knows the core is the strongest creature here. Suddenly, his senses detect a new presence which commands him to stop. A humanoid monster wearing a purple mask appears in the form shadows behind him and leaps to attack on him. Chanseok's eyes narrow as he locks onto this new, more intelligent-looking foe. The monster's attack destroys the ground, sending a massive shockwave. But his blade gets stuck in the ground. Chanseok says that he was waiting for the paradox flame to die out and admits that his opponent is smart. And he sees the core of the corrosion rift is another level, but monster gives him chilling threat, you will die. Undeterred, Chanseok gauges his opponent's level, deciding he can manage a 4-hit combo. And he bursts forward, closing the distance to begin his assault. He aims a precise thrust at the core's center. But the core once again demonstrates its skill, blocking the spear with its sword. The spear tip grinds to a halt against the blade. But a blue energy crackles at the point of impact. As he states the name of his signature technique, Dual Orbit Spear, a secondary arc of blue energy, mirroring his initial thrust, slams into the unprepared core. Caught off guard by the delayed second strike, the core can only watch as the attack connects. The technique generates a blue trajectory that perfectly mimics his first strike, repeating it up to 4 times. If he attacks in sync with the trajectory, it's just a simple multi-hit combo. He poses a tactical question. What happens if the blue trajectory's attack is delayed by a single beat? The delayed echo creates a tricky, 2-part pincer move that is incredibly difficult to dodge. And faced with a pincer attack unfolding with a time lag the opponent. This forces the opponent to make a mistake, leaving them wide open, exploiting the opening. With his strategy successful, he declares the fight over. The dual orbit spear follows up with a relentless flurry of strikes, overwhelming his stunned opponent, and lands multiple direct hits, riddling the core's body with energy. The final blow lands with a massive explosion, sealing the core's fate. As the core's mass shatters, Chanseok says, I thought it would just dissipate and that's it. Instead, the defeated core leaves behind a glowing, ethereal box that materializes in his hands. He opens the mysterious purple box, the unexpected spoil of his victory. A look of shock and realization dawns on his face as he recognizes the object. Meanwhile, back in the Situation Room, the crisis has worsened. The corruption is spreading, and all contact with Team 9 has been lost. The manager receives a grim report. Even the reinforcement teams are encountering monsters, making a landing on the island nearly impossible. Utterly defeated, the manager can only stare into the abyss, seeing no way out of the catastrophe. He resigns himself to failure, believing he can only watch helplessly as the hunters on the island are wiped out. Just as all hope seems lost, an operator jolts him from his despair, shouting that a message has arrived from Yu Chanseok. At the manager's frantic command, the operator puts the message on the main screen. A single stunning sentence appears for all to see. The Alpha Corrosion Rift on Gyeodongdo Island has been taken care of. The operator confirms the message, officially reporting that the rift signal has vanished and all monsters have been annihilated. The manager can only stare at the screen in stunned silence, whispering that it's a miracle. His mind reels, struggling to comprehend how a single hunter could have achieved the impossible. Having single-handedly saved the day, Yu Chanseok sits peacefully on a cliff's edge. Enjoying the clear night sky, he remarks, "The air is nice." Han Sang-ah unleashes a powerful blast of electricity, desperately fending off the relentless horde of monsters. Pushing past her limits, a battle-worn she continues to fight, her body coursing with electricity. Her hands tremble as she clings to her sword, the strain of the prolonged battle taking its toll. Exhausted and surrounded, she realizes with dread that Chanseok is gone and the number of monsters has only grown. Kim Min-jae steadies a faltering she, offering what little support he can. Facing an overwhelming tide of monsters, the two rookie hunters wonder if they will make it out alive. Sang-aya knows her teammate Min-jae is already at his limit. With a fresh wound on her leg, she admits to herself that she cannot hold on for much longer either. A monster lunges, screeching as it closes in for the kill. She tries to muster her last bit of strength for a final, desperate attack. But her body betrays her and she stumbles at the critical moment. Her legs finally give out, leaving her completely vulnerable. Min-jae screams Sang-a's name in terror as a monster lunges at his defenseless partner. His eyes widen as he steels himself for the inevitable. Suddenly, under the pale moonlight, a strange silence falls over the battlefield. Sang-a looks up in confusion, sensing the abrupt change. Min-jae is stunned to see the entire monster horde has vanished into thin air. Back at the Gyeodongdo Island assembly point, Chanseok observes the many injured hunters, noting the chaos that unfolded while he was gone. As other guys notice him, word spreads among the survivors, whispering in disbelief that a single rookie took down a grade 3 corrosion rift by himself. Chanseok spots his former teammates, Min-jae and Sang-a, calling out to them from the crowd. Min-jae expresses his shock. "When I got your text, how could you even think of taking on the corrosion rift alone?" Chanseok puts on a heroic front, claiming it was his heart, not his body, that moved to protect the other hunters, all while thinking that managing his public image is a skill in itself. And says if HD known I would have set out before sundown. A man in a suit approaches, calling his name. The official introduces himself as Byeon Jong-tae, a branch manager from the Korea Operating Corporation. Chanseok confirms he is the one who was summoned and coolly asks what the man wants. Jong-tae informs him that the mayor would like to see him, gesturing toward a large government building. Arriving at the location, Chanseok grumbles to himself about older people ordering him around. He decides to go along with it, realizing it is a good opportunity to negotiate a bonus for clearing a grade 3 rift, something his contract did not cover. Another official greets Chanseok as he arrives in the pouring rain. The man introduces himself as Lee Pil-jae, the communications and liaison officer. He leads Chanseok inside, explaining that the mayor was shocked by the report from the island and is eager to meet him. Chanseok brushes off the urgency, saying his deed was not that impressive, but Pil-jae insists the mayor canceled his entire morning schedule, and heaps praise on him, comparing his feat to that of the legendary first hunter, the great pioneer. But Chanseok thinks, "I suppose not. I found it tough to handle alone." Internally, he wonders if the real monster is this pioneer guy. As Pil-jae announces their arrival to the mayor, Park Jian, the mayor of Incheon, warmly welcomes Chanseok and apologizes for the summons in such awful weather. He invites Chanseok to have a seat and asks Pil-jae to fetch them some coffee. After coffee is served, the mayor begins, praising Chanseok for his great service to the country. The mayor explains that Gyeodongdo Island was a major headache, but budget limitations made hiring an expensive guild difficult. Chanseok takes a sip of coffee as the mayor confirms that this was his very first commissioned mission. The mayor suddenly stands, excitedly proclaiming his pride that such an incredible hunter's first steps were taken in Incheon. Chanseok is taken aback as the mayor launches into a patriotic speech about Korea being the safest country in the world. Mayor Park continues his spiel, boasting about Incheon's international airport, free economic zone, and foreign investment. He passionately emphasizes the massive funds and goods flowing to the city. Finally, he promises to provide assistance and ensure Chanseok's path as a hunter is a smooth one. In a flashback, Byeon Jong-tae asks Chanseok what his purpose is for being a hunter. Chanseok gives a crude but clear analogy. When a toilet is clogged, someone has to be willing to dive into the filth to fix it. Byeon Jong-tae grips the steering wheel, processing the stark response. He warns that as Chanseok becomes famous, he'll be scouted for commercials and TV shows. Chanseok correctly assumes Byeon Jong-tae is worried he will be changed by fame, a fate that has befallen many promising hunters. He explains that with menacing monsters just across the truce line, this is only natural. He laments that even in Korea, the last sanctuary on Earth, the power of capital holds sway. He stresses that Chanseok's accomplishment is incredible, and that many people in difficult situations will be watching him. He sincerely states that he hopes Chanseok will continue to be a symbol of hope. Back in the present, Chanseok recalls the conversation, curious how far the mayor's office will go with its act. He smirks, realizing they are not even trying to hide their intentions, but he is not the type to be swayed by such appeals. He reflects on his long life and the countless hardships he has already endured, making him immune to this kind of manipulation. Cutting to the chase, Chan Seok asks what he has to do in return for all this promised support. He bluntly suggests an example, helping a mayor with falling approval ratings get re-elected, stunning Mayor Park into silence. The mayor quickly recovers, chuckling that Chan Seok is well-informed and that information is easy to find these days. Chan Seok lays out the facts. The mayor's term ends next year, and his re-election looks difficult. Flustered, Mayor Park pivots, reminding Chan Seok that he needed the city's approval to participate in the commission in the first place. Chan Seok internally acknowledges this is true, realizing the mayor plans to frame him as a talent he personally discovered. He concludes that the mayor simply wants to ride his coattails to political victory. The mayor continues his pitch, boasting about his relationships with overseas and domestic companies. He offers a concrete example, getting Chan Seok's face on an instant coffee mix brand, replacing the current model whose contract is ending soon. As the mayor promises even more, Chan Seok slams his mug down, interrupting him. "It seems you take me for someone cheap," Chan Seok says, his expression cold and dismissive. The mayor is taken aback but tries to play it off, saying the world needs a new face to change the dreary atmosphere. Chan Seok retorts that if a talent like him continues working as a hunter, a new era will begin regardless. He leans in, declaring that everything the mayor is offering is his to take anyway, with or without his help. The mayor makes a last-ditch effort, offering to provide Chan Seok with safe, high-paying commissions, but Chan Seok calls it a really uninteresting offer. Chan Seok gets up to leave, sarcastically telling the mayor to give his congratulations to the coffee mix model, who will now be able to extend his contract. The rejected coffee box sits on the table, a symbol of the failed negotiation. Outside in the heavy rain, the mood is grim. Piljae kneels on the wet ground, reporting to a mysterious hooded figure. The hooded figure concludes that the Gyeodongdo Island test was a failure, and Piljae apologizes, and quickly adds that there is good news, despite the failure. The hooded figure asks what he has, and Piljae explains it is a clip from Chan Seok's Hunter Association certification exam video. On the phone screen, Chan Seok unleashes his paradox flame during the exam, stunning the onlookers. The mysterious figure watches the clip and smirks, commenting, "He's excellent, isn't he?" On the first of every month, the entire nation eagerly awaits one specific announcement now. The September 2025 Hunter rankings are released, and the public rushes to their phones to see the new list. Even Yoon Song excitedly shows the updated rankings to his mother. While the rankings are usually just a source of public entertainment with few changes, this time is different. In a hospital room, Kim Min-jae and his companion finally see the long-awaited rankings appear on screen. The Hunter Association president, Moon Jong-tae, is formally presented with the official September World Hunter rankings. Meanwhile, after a bloody battle, Lee Se-yoon smirks, wondering if that guy made it onto the list. Yu Chan Seok, now a public figure, scoffs at the flashy presentation of the rankings on his phone. And he scrolls past the noise, knowing that the only names that truly matter are in the top 10. The list reveals Lee Se-yoon firmly holding her 10th place spot, while her subordinate set up camp in a snowy wasteland. In 5th place is the fierce Kim Chae-yeon, a hunter who wields a pair of unique golden fan blades. The third-ranked hunter is revealed to be the pyrokinetic Choi Ye-a-riem, wreathed in his own flames. And securing the second-place position is the muscular powerhouse Jang Tae-shuk, radiating an immense purple aura. Before our protagonist can see who took first place, an official announces that he's the one at the top of the list. The same official then cheerfully informs him that his long wait is over, and he can now head out to his press conference. The man congratulates him, noting that his name is on the list of 25 new entry hunters. On the official document, his name is highlighted in red, signifying his record-breaking debut into the rankings. While a veteran solo clearing a Grade 3 rift is common, for a rookie on their first mission, it's an unprecedented achievement. Chan Seok faces a media frenzy, with reporters shouting questions about his background and his unbelievable feat. Feeling like a child genius on display, he cuts the QA short, announcing he will only take one last question. A reporter presses him for his mindset and a word of resolution for his future as a hunter. He bluntly tells the press to forget empty cliches like, "I'll do my best." With unwavering confidence, he declares that he will prove his worth through his results alone. Later, Chan Seok finds himself in a helicopter, flying over the desolate ruins that were once Gunsal Prison. The president notes the horrific sight, explaining that after the rifts appeared, most countries lost their ability to govern, and proudly states that South Korea not only survived but thrived, showcasing their advanced, silent helicopter as proof. When our guy asks if this is the fate of countries that couldn't cope, he confirms that many of the world's capitals have vanished. Then invites the young hunter to take a closer look at the devastation below. He explains that this is one of the Great 80s, the 8 most dangerous corrosion rifts in the world. But the Gonsal prison rift appeared 13 years ago, erupting from the city center without any warning. Though some people survived the initial event, they found themselves trapped inside a newly formed corrosion zone. Unable to escape, the survivors were quickly and mercilessly swept away by the horrors within. In just a few days, an entire city disappeared from the map without a sound. After that, he explains that while nations appear stable on the surface, the power of their central governments has been severely weakened. Having absorbed the history lesson, Chan Seok cuts to the chase, demanding to know why the president brought him here. Then he reveals that Yoon Song-yeon of the Taebaek Guild visited him, annoyed that the rookie had refused to join them. Our guy vividly recalls the intimidating presence of the big guy who tried to forcefully recruit him. He's stunned to learn that Song-hyun then had the audacity to ask the president for his personal whereabouts. But President assures him the information wasn't shared, but warns that Taebaek's survival of the fittest ethos means they might try to subdue him by force. Our guy acknowledges the troublesome situation, admitting that at his current level, he'd struggle to beat him in a contest of brute strength. The president correctly deduces that our protagonist prefers to operate on his own terms rather than belong to a guild. And he advises him that the best way to block Taebaek's approach is to raise his own standing by taking on major missions directly from him. Immediately sensing a motive, he bluntly asks what the president wants in return for this special treatment. But President shrewdly replies that all he wants is for the young man to remember the simple fact that he was the one who helped him. Seeing it as a good opportunity to build his reputation, he accepts the deal and takes the mission file. The mission is to escort a cargo ship from Busan to Nanning City, a difficult task due to the numerous corrosion zones along the route. However, upon reading the manifest, he's baffled to find Rolexes, high-end porcelain, and a luxury sedan listed as daily necessities. But President cryptically replies that for certain people, these are indeed necessities, and he thought a man like him would understand the political implications. Completely unimpressed, questioning the need for such luxuries in a country with a shattered government, the president explains that even in a collapsing world, international politics and maintaining relationships are not meaningless. Realizing the mission is just a political errand to grease the wheels, our guy unbuckles his seatbelt and flatly declines. A startled president protests, insisting that the Korean government considers the matter extremely important. But he remains unmoved, stating it would be foolish for an individual like him to get entangled in the center of politics. President demeanor hardens as he condescendingly suggests the excessive attention has become a poison to the rookie hunter. In a shocking move, our guy casually tosses the mission documents out of the open helicopter door, leaving the president speechless. With a final look back, he coolly thanks him for the helicopter ride. Then he declares that he'll swim to Seoul on his own, leaving a completely dumbfounded president in his wake. Without another word, he backflips out of the helicopter, plummeting towards the water below. The president can only stare in utter disbelief at the rookie's audacity. As a massive splash erupts from the sea, he can only grumble to himself about the rebellious nature of kids these days. Later that evening, the scene shifts to the golden sunset over the bustling Incheon port. A lone port worker enjoying a quiet coffee break looks out over the water in confusion. Suddenly, a drenched and exhausted Yoo Chan-seok hauls himself out of the water, gasping for breath. Just then he shouts he thought he was going to die. Who told him to threaten him like that? The worker, assuming the worst, calls out that he must have been through a lot, and caught off guard by the misplaced sympathy, he simply offers an awkward thanks. Now alone, he reaffirms his primary objective, to build up his own strength, and resolves to prioritize the trickiest and most difficult missions to quickly become a big shot in the hunter world. His goal is to become so powerful and influential that he can no longer be swayed by the schemes of men like mayor or president. Scrolling through mission requests on his phone, he quickly finds one that piques his interest, and accepts a high-stakes mission to help kidnapping victims on Tsushima Island, near an estimated Grade 2 corrosion rift. Sitting atop a shipping container, he lets out a deep sigh as he watches the sun dip below the horizon. Drenched but resolute, he mentally prepares himself, knowing he's going to be very busy for a while. The mission briefing begins, detailing how on September 3rd, several fishermen setting out for jumbo shrimp season went missing. That day, the sea proved to be treacherous and far from ordinary, and it was discovered that corrosion creatures from a rift on Tsushima Island had ambushed the fishing boats, kidnapping the crew. A lone, traumatized survivor later confirmed that the captured fishermen were still being held alive. Thus, the objective is clear: infiltrate Tsushima Island, rescue the hostages, and destroy the corrosion rift. Back in his apartment, our protagonist reviews the mission details on his phone. Then he notes the hefty 55 million won reward for the Grade 2 rift and immediately contemplates handling it alone. After that, he grows serious, realizing that if he completes the mission alone, he will claim the entire lucrative reward. And then there were the added bonuses, a heroic story, and the immense fame that comes with successfully clearing a Grade 2 rift. While he feels it's a worthy challenge, he also acknowledges the massive power gap between different grades of corrosion creatures. Then he recalls that a Grade 3 monster has the destructive power of a tank, while a Grade 2 creature is considered a natural disaster-level threat. As for a Grade 1, an entire nation's military force is required just to take down a single one. Weighing the risks, he admits that while his Paradox Flame handled Grade 3 easily, a Grade 2 might require a useful teammate to deal with any variables. But he scoffs at the idea, knowing that truly powerful hunters wouldn't bother with a civilian rescue request. Just then, an idea strikes him. He realizes there is one person who might be desperate enough to join. Now, on a boat heading to the island, he stands ready in his new combat gear. Just then, Han Sang-a, his chosen partner, gets his attention. Who questions how long until they reach Tsushima Island, to which he casually checks his phone and estimates they have about an hour left, and advises her to rest up for the tough battle ahead. But she seems more interested in the armor on his shoulder. Preoccupied, he's momentarily confused by her question. After that, she geeks out, identifying his armor as a limited edition Iron Seraph shoulder gear and eagerly asking how he obtained it. He coolly explains that it was a gift from a junk dealer he has a contract with, but she says the place she contracted with didn't give her anything like that. Then he smugly lectures her that he gets special treatment because he's a rising star who soloed a Grade 3 rift, unlike a mere rookie valedictorian like her. So he challenges her to get stronger and famous if she feels wronged, and her determined gaze shows she takes his words to heart. A flashback reveals how their partnership for this mission came to be, a few days prior. In a phone call, our guy had bluntly asked a surprised Han Sang-a if she wanted to be his teammate. She hesitated, remembering how they barely survived a Grade 3 rift and questioning the sanity of tackling a Grade 2. He waited silently for her response. Then he cut through her hesitation with a single piercing question, "Don't you want to become stronger?" He reminded her of her own words that she wanted to learn from him because he was stronger. After that, he made her an offer she couldn't refuse, guaranteeing that if he were to teach her, and says she would become several times more powerful than she is now. With the tantalizing promise of power hanging in the air, he told her to make a choice. She, driven by a deep-seated motivation, knew she had a reason she must become stronger. Her resolve hardened as she made her decision, and declared that for the sake of getting stronger, she would willingly jump into hell itself. Back in the present, a blaring alarm suddenly shatters the calm on their boat. Then, the crew reports unidentified objects ahead just as ghostly ships materialize from the fog. He quickly assesses the situation, counting a total of 5 ships. Concerned about the civilian hostages, he wonders how they can approach the ships without being detected. Then he turns to ask her for ideas, only to find her hovering in the air. He feigns surprise at her levitation ability, but she asks, "Don't tell her he can't." But her silence in response to his questions confirms his suspicion. A smug grin spreads across her face as she relishes the rare opportunity to point out a skill he is incapable of. He looks on, feigning shock as she laughs, teasing him that it's an easy skill to master. Now forced to carry her, he skims across the water's surface, complaining that he can't run on water yet and telling her to stop splashing. But his playful demeanor vanishes as they close in on the ships and he senses danger. Just then, he quickly formulates a plan, ordering her to take on the nearest ship when she asks why. He explains his reasoning. He can sense mana, and the energy grows stronger on the ships further back, indicating a greater threat. Understanding the strategy, she acknowledges the order and leaps into action. As she comes over the deck, however, she's taken aback, questioning if the figure before her is even human. From behind, he instructs her to open her eyes and look more carefully, and points out that the creature's movements are clearly not human at all. Just then, the creature reveals its true form, a grotesque, skeletal monster straight out of a nightmare. Meanwhile, she lands on the ship's railing, ready for combat. Then he immediately critiques her landing, warning that it's a good way to blow out her knees. Furthermore, he scolds her for making such a noisy entrance that will attract unwanted attention, and just then, a horde of undead pirate-like monsters turns their glowing eyes towards the duo. With his eyes glowing, he prepares to engage the enemy horde, and releases a devastating blast of electrical energy, effortlessly clearing a path through the horde, which makes him quickly assess the enemies are lowest tier Grade 2, a manageable threat. His thoughts immediately turn to his partner, wondering how she will fare against this level of opponent. Because he watches her fight, recognizing that she's already unleashing her full power. Realizing her inefficiency, he calls out her name to get her attention, and shouts that she's using far too much mana and will be exhausted in no time. While she struggles, he barks that a much lower power output is all that's needed for these foes. His promise to teach her how to become stronger echoes in her mind. Frustrated with her lack of control, she curses under her breath as he continues to shout her name. She then tries to gain control over her electrical energy. However, his on-the-fly training continues as he yells that she's still using too much power, and screams at her to reduce her power output even more, forcing her to learn control in the middle of the battle. But a painful memory surfaces as she reflects on the cold, dark tragedy that is the life of the weak. Recalling her past self, crying and helpless, she reaffirms her vow to never be a weakling again, to become stronger at any cost. Just then, his urgent warning snaps her back to reality just as an undead monster lunges. With newfound focus, she channels her power into a precise, devastating strike that slices the monster in two. Her inner monologue reinforces her unshakable motivation to gain strength, and with electricity crackling in her determined eyes, she repeats the vow she made to him, and to herself, "I jump into hell itself." Exhausted after their intense battle at sea, she stands amidst the defeated undead monsters. Poised to jump over the railing, he looks at her and asks if the fight is finally over, and gives her a casual thumbs up, confirming that he has taken care of all the other monster-infested boats. Just then she admits to herself that the situation was too dire for her to remain stubborn about her own methods, and thanks him for his advice, while he retorts that the world is full of idiots who wouldn't learn even if he spoon-fed them. He's surprised to hear this is the first time anyone's given her advice, and questions why her seniors at the academy never helped. She explains that because she learned everything so quickly, everyone else found it annoying to help her, which prompts him to ask if she fears becoming stronger than him. With steely determination, she declares that she has already surpassed every teacher she's ever had. He is momentarily taken aback by her bold and somewhat arrogant declaration, but he quickly recovers, promising her that it won't happen with him, and that he'll make sure she's looking up to him for the rest of her life, a response that clearly annoys her. After landing on Tsushima Island, two Coast Guard officers salute the hunters, and inform the pair they will remain on standby at Gyojay Island and wish them luck, to which he nonchalantly replies, "Yeah, keep up the good work." He then begins to strategize, stating that according to a survivor's report, the hostages are being held at a shrine. She confirms there are two shrines on the island, Gaijin Shrine and Atazumi Shrine. After that, they agree that Gaijin Shrine is their first stop, a destination they can reach on foot in a few hours. However, he points out the main problem: while getting there will be easy, the return trip with the hostages will be a different story. Then he considers the 15 hostages, realizing that transporting them, especially if they are wounded, will be incredibly difficult. The other problem is that he can feel a sinister mana beyond the fog that sting like it's tearing his skin, and the corrosion creatures all over the island will be chasing them relentlessly. To avoid monster attacks and ensure a safe return, he concludes they need one crucial thing: a vehicle. Having found an abandoned van, he asks her if she's a good driver, and she confidently replies, "Of course." After that, the van immediately lurches forward with violent speed, kicking up a cloud of dust and debris. Clinging on for dear life, he screams, "Good my ass," at her reckless driving. As she drives recklessly, he yells that the brakes must be just for decoration, but she snaps back that if he doesn't like it, he can take the wheel. Gripping the roof corner, he tersely says, "Forget it," and then climbs onto the roof of the moving van, admitting to himself that her reckless driving is still better than relying on his own license, which has been expired for 20 years. Deciding he's better at fighting anyway, our protagonist prepares to engage the horde of monsters pursuing them. With a focused expression, he brandishes a long rope with a weighted end, ready for battle, and he unleashes a stone toward the horde, sending it hurtling at bullet-like speed at the pursuing crowd, which cleaves a monster's head. After that, having secured the rope, he pulls it taut. And now he is ready to fight with his spear and confirms the rope is sturdy enough for his plan. Suddenly, his eyes widen as he spots another group of monsters approaching from a different angle. Just then, he shouts a warning to her about incoming monsters from the left. From the driver's seat, she confidently yells back, "Leave it to me." He realizes what she's about to do and tries to warn her against it. But it's too late, as she violently swerves the van, smashing all the monsters to the ground. And laughing maniacally, she screams at them to go roll on the pavement. Watching her unhinged driving, he mutters to himself that maybe he should have driven after all. Their wild ride continues as they approach a long, steep flight of stairs leading up through the forest. And massive horde of undead monsters chases them up the stairs, clawing at the back of the van. As they near the shrine gate at the top, he tells her to get inside while he handles the monsters behind them. She agrees and steels her resolve to drive into the shrine grounds. Just then, she floors the accelerator, shouting that she's going ahead as the van crashes through the shrine entrance. Meanwhile, he leaps off the back of the van, turning to face the relentless horde. His eyes glow with purple energy as he prepares to unleash his unique ability, and activates his paradox flame, engulfing the stairs in a swirling vortex of purple and black energy. He then reveals his simple but brilliant plan. He just needs to burn away the concept of friction from the stairs. And the effect is immediate as the entire horde of monsters slips and tumbles helplessly back down the frictionless steps. Inside the shrine, Han Sang-ah finds the kidnapped fisherman bound and huddled together in fear. She cautiously approaches one of the men and asks if he's okay, but he can only stammer in response. After that, she introduces herself as a hunter from the Hunter Association, explaining she is there to rescue them. However, the fisherman is so overwhelmed with terror that he begins screaming uncontrollably, and she desperately tries to explain she's there to save them, but he screams to her run away. His face portrays a mask of pure terror. Confused by his reaction, she wonders what he could possibly be so afraid of. Just then, a massive, armored samurai monster appears looming behind her and its blade poised to strike. Suddenly, Yu Chan-seok appears, blocking his devastating blow with his spear. With his eyes glowing, he tells her to get the survivors into the van, declaring that he will handle this new foe himself. As the battle erupted, Yu Chan-seok effortlessly deflected the samurai's attack. Then the samurai raises his sword once again, but this time, Chan-seok skillfully blocks it with his sword. His eyes narrow with focus as he holds his ground against the monster's immense strength. The samurai raises its sword again, preparing to bring down another devastating blow. Just then, with incredible speed, Sanga drives the van and crashes it into the monster, and she lets out a fierce roar, "Die!" The decisive crash crushes the samurai's head, and he collapses to the ground. After that, Chan-seok turns his attention to her. Hanging out of the van, he warns her, "When we get back, don't touch the steering wheel," to which she coldly replies, "Just get in already." As they prepare to flee, he confirms with her that all the hostages are safely aboard, but she feels confused as she looks ahead, and screams a warning for him to watch the front, but his attention is already fixed on the threat. Ahead of them, a massive pit reveals countless pairs of menacing red eyes glowing in the darkness. From the chasm, a terrifying horde of undead monsters erupts, shrieking with hunger. Oddly, he coolly remarks that the first samurai monster was surprisingly durable, having survived a hit from their van. Anticipating the overwhelming numbers, he turns to her and asks to borrow her sword. But she protests furiously, declaring it a grave insult to a swordsman even as the undead horde swarms closer. But he cuts through her pride, forcing her to choose between her honor and the lives of the hostages. Conceding the point, she reluctantly tosses him her sword. Now wielding both his spear and her sword, he prepares for the onslaught, and mutters to himself that he didn't think he'd have to use his trump card so soon. His mind flashes back to the Gyeodongdo Rift, where he is shown retrieving a mysterious, glowing box, and recalls his surprise upon discovering its content. The item is a single armored gauntlet which emanated a subtle blue light. The moment he equipped it, he knew it was no ordinary piece of armor. The glove immediately began gathering mana from the atmosphere, and he realized that while it might be a basic mana supplementing item for others, for him, it was so much more. Calculating its maximum capacity, he determined it was essentially a mana battery with a 5-minute charge. And he knew that for those 5 minutes, he could unleash enough power to rival the world's 10th-ranked hunter, Lee Se-yoon. Back in the present, he leaps into the air, dual-wielding his weapons. The mana-gathering glove activates, glowing intensely as it floods his body with power. Just then, he unleashes a cataclysmic attack, a web of energy that instantly vaporizes the entire undead horde. From the van, she can only watch, utterly speechless at the overwhelming display of power. Through the side mirror, she witnesses the aftermath, astounded that he eliminated so many monsters at once. With his temporary power boost expended, he calmly returns to the van, and he instructs her to drive straight to the port without looking back, and they speed off. Their escape van races through the deserted streets towards Hatakatsu Port. For a moment, she dares to hope they're in the clear after defeating the last wave. But her hope is short-lived as a fresh horde of undead swarms their vehicle, and she wonders where they all keep coming from. With the van at its limit, she suggests they get out and fight, but a calm Chan-seok simply tells her to keep driving. She protests that the van can't take much more, just as a strange blue barrier begins to form around them. The magical barrier crackles with energy, repelling the monsters clawing at the van. She is stunned as the undead are effortlessly thrown back by the invisible shield. Now protected, their battered van continues its flight towards the harbor. Looking back, she realizes the pursuing horde is being held back by some unseen force. Her eyes widen as she begins to understand what's happening. Just then, she spots a glowing magical symbol he must have drawn on a nearby building. Then he explains that it's a technique called protective formation geometry, and simplifies the complex magic for her, calling it a drawing method that repels monsters. When she asks where he learned it, he casually replies it was in another world, adding that she couldn't learn it anyway. He then can't help but admire his own ever-improving skills, much to her annoyance. She asks if the geometry can repel any monster, to which he admits it has its limits, and grimly reveals that it doesn't work on the real ones, just as the old samurai monster walked right through the barrier unscathed. The imposing monster, emanating a powerful aura, growls about its duty to protect something sacred. Han Sung-ah is seized by a sudden, terrifying chill as she senses the monster's immense power. Chen Seok, however, recognizes the monster's ability as Mind's Eye and finds the atmosphere surprisingly non-threatening. Just then, she recalls the definition of the legendary skill, a sixth sense that predicts an opponent's every move. She trembles, questioning how a mere corpse can wield a technique that even seasoned masters find difficult to achieve. But he coolly reassures her, telling her there's no need to be afraid, and confidently dismisses legendary techniques like Mind's Eye as nothing more than simple tricks. With a sharp glint in his eye, he declares he will now teach her how to deal with such opponents. But the samurai monster scoffs at him with a mocking laugh, and he swings his sword, showing off before Chan Seok. As Chan Seok calmly approaches the flailing monster, he begins his lecture on the true nature of Mind's Eye, and explains it's not a mystical power, but simply an acquired reflex built from countless combat experiences. This reflex can be exploited. By projecting pure killing intent, one can overload its senses and cause it to malfunction. Sanga whispers the names of other so-called ultimate techniques, Heart Sword, State of Selflessness. But he dismisses them all as mere illusions, so-called realms, that are ultimately meaningless. He effortlessly reaches to the monster and swings his spear before he can react. With a single, elegant sweep of his spear, he completely shatters the armored samurai monster. As the monster crumbles into pieces behind him, he calmly asserts that such lofty techniques are, in fact, nothing special. He warns that the very pursuit of enlightenment is a trap that causes fighters to set false limits on their own potential. The once fearsome monster, wielder of a legendary skill, now lies in a heap of broken armor. Chan Seok declares that he has the right to make such a bold claim. He earned that right and explains, by paying with countless sacrifices to escape that very trap himself in his past life. He reflects that even though the monster was strong enough to survive being hit by their van, its ultimate move was pitiful against him. She questions her own achievements during the mission, feeling utterly useless in comparison. She finally admits to herself that while she thought she was giving her all, his true strength far exceeded anything she had ever imagined. And with newfound resolve, she decides she can no longer pursue her goals with a half-hearted mindset. With her determination rekindled, she gazes at Chan Seok, ready to commit fully. Gathering her courage, she tells him that she has a favor to ask. With fire in her eyes, she looks him straight on and pleads, "Teach me for real." He feigns confusion, asking if he isn't already teaching her, but she clarifies that his previous advice isn't enough, and specifies that she doesn't just want advice, she wants his direct, hands-on guidance. Just then, she admits that compared to him, she's ridiculously weak, which is exactly why she's in such a hurry to get stronger. Intrigued by her desperation, he simply asks for her reason. Filled with rage, she declares her ultimate goal, to end Club Shaddai with her own hands. An infographic explains that the Great Eights are the world's most dangerous rifts, and Club Shaddai is one of them that is infamous for having swallowed the Himalayas in a single breath. To this he remarks that her goal is a bit much, and correctly guesses her motivation is revenge. She confirms it, stating that she seeks revenge for her family. To sweeten the deal, she tells him she isn't asking for help for free and offers him a business card. He's stunned to see the card is for the KY Group, a massive corporation with a market capitalization of $257 trillion. Realizing she's from a prominent family, he listens as she explains she's given up on the succession competition. After that, he shrewdly deduces that if she achieves something great as a hunter, she might get dragged back into the family's power struggle, and so he asks what she truly wants from him. Just then, she makes her offer clear, "Make me the best," and in return, she will supply him with rare elixirs unavailable through normal channels, and promises that with the elixirs she provides, he too will be able to reach the realm of power he desires. But he internally scoffs, knowing she couldn't possibly comprehend the level he's already at. A flashback reveals his true self, the seasoned hero who reached the pinnacle of power long ago, and he reflects that his only reason for becoming stronger now is to return the world to how it was before the rifts appeared. Back in the present, he shakes her hand, sealing the deal but stating that he doesn't need any rare items. Instead of elixirs, he asks her for something simple, and they arrange to drive to a medical center. At the hospital, a doctor diligently takes notes on the rescued survivors. Chan Seok and Sung-ah approach, inquiring about the 7 patients' recovery time. The doctor says that due to the survivors' poor nutrition, it will take at least a week before they can converse, and that he will notify them when they regain consciousness. Agreeing to let the patients rest, the two are about to leave. But Chan Seok, wasting no time, tells a surprised Sung-ah that her training is starting right now. He leads her to a desolate training ground, ready to begin their session. But before they start, he has a question for his new student. He asks her if she thinks she could dodge his spear if he swung it with his full power. To this she admits it would be difficult, wondering why he'd ask something so obvious given their skill gap. He contradicts her, insisting she can definitely dodge it if she uses her senses to their absolute limit. Just then he instructs her to see with her eyes, hear with her ears, and smell the scents around her, and to feel with her skin. Getting unnervingly close, he tells her to dominate all her senses and fight in the realm of consciousness, not instinct. With the lesson over, he asks if she learned well. Just then she suddenly tries to unsheath her sword. But before she can even process his words, he vanishes, leaving her wondering where he went. And she desperately tries to locate him, focusing first on listening for any movement. Wrong. He appears behind her instantly, his blade at her neck. Then he tells her she's too slow, explaining that in combat, senses must come before thought. Holding his spear to her, he advises her to simply accept what her senses tell her and move, as unmastered senses will only deceive her. With the theory lesson complete, he declares it's time to move on to practical application. Suddenly, a loud crash echoes from the nearby medical center. A police officer guarding the hospital turns toward a cloud of dust rising from the training area. Another officer runs up, wondering where his partner had gone. And he's about to scold his partner for not calling sooner, but he freezes in shock. Just then he stares in disbelief, stammering, What is that?" The source of the commotion is the intense, destructive sparring session between Chan Seok and Sung-ah. Sung-ah desperately continues her relentless assault. He calmly blocks her attack with the shaft of his spear, then effortlessly deflects her blade by pushing her arm away. And the impact of their attacks shatters the ground around them. Yet despite the overwhelming difference in power, she regrips her sword, ready for more. But he prepares another powerful downward strike with his spear. Her eyes widen in terror as she realizes she can't possibly dodge the incoming attack. Just then, a police officer's shout for Mr. Yu Chan Seok makes him stop his spear just short of her face. Andra urgently informs them that one of the survivors has woken up and asks them to come with him. She gasps, breaking free from the haze of intense training as if waking from a dream, when he says, is it that time already?" And he ends the session, noting that she's learned to block, much to her bewildered disbelief that this was only the first session. In the hospital room, Chan Seok asks the conscious survivor if he's okay. Sitting by his bedside, the survivor begins to recount his ordeal, and he recalls a truck arriving at the place where he was held captive and seeing people get out. Confused, both Chan Seok and Sung-ah ask if the people were other hostages. But the survivor clarifies that the newcomers were too calm to be captives and, more disturbingly, the monsters weren't hostile towards them. In a flashback, he recalls seeing a hooded figure directing monsters to load a few of the hostages onto a truck. Chan Seok realizes this explains why only 7 hostages were left, noting the good fortune that one person managed to escape. The survivor corrects him, however, stating grimly that it wasn't an escape. And he reveals the shocking truth. Those people let us go on purpose, leaving Sung-ah stunned. Our guy, however, isn't surprised, murmuring that his suspicions were correct after all. Then he explains that it was always strange for a mere civilian to escape a place that 2 skilled hunters had barely managed to infiltrate unless someone had let them go. They should change jobs to a hunter right now. Then she connects the dots, realizing their rescue mission was a trap from the very beginning. Angered by the deception, he wonders aloud why someone would go to such lengths, and smirks menacingly, infuriated by the audacity of whoever orchestrated this dirty trick. She silently questions the source of his fury. Is it anger at being underestimated? Or, she wonders, is it righteous anger because the enemy used human lives as bait? When asked for more details, the survivor mentions seeing a cat, and clarifies that there was a cat mascot attached to the person's waist. That detail clicks for Sung-ah, who recognizes the Tsushima airport building. At the now empty airport, he asks how he figured it out, prompting her to sarcastically ask if his smartphone is just for decoration. To this, he teases her for being a rich kid who doesn't understand data charges, which leads her to question if he just came out of a cave. Seeing no one around, she suggests they return to the shrine, but he stops her, revealing he's found their target standing on a shattered glass rooftop below them. He looks down, noticing the man below has a face full of piercings, and dryly wonders if the man stitched his own face with a sewing machine. Just then, he observes that despite his unusual appearance, the pierced man is no ordinary person. The mysterious man then greets them with a condescending, "Well, hello there, brats." The man introduces himself as Kim Ji-hoon to Chan Seok and Sang-ah, and claims he's the one who brought them there alive, a statement that confuses them both. To demonstrate the alternative to being brought in alive, he reveals a beaten and unconscious man he has captured. With a casual flick of his wrist, he hurls the captive into the mysterious erosion zone. A shocked Sang-ah realizes with horror that he's throwing people into the erosion zone. As the captive screams, she also realizes that they can't get out until the core is destroyed. Just then, she notices that the man is gruesomely transformed, his face twisting into a monstrous, cyborg-like form, becoming what Ji-hun calls an erosion member. Ji-hyun scoffs that a weak host yields a pathetic result, clearly unimpressed by his creation. Then, he casually kicks the newly formed monster, obliterating it instantly. Chan Seok and Sang-ah are left speechless by the shocking display of cruelty and power. However, Chan Seok asks, "Are we going to be turned into those things? Why?" Ji-hoon explains that sacrificing ordinary people has never been enough to achieve their goals. His true aim, he says, is to use the hostages to create truly satisfactory and powerful members of erosion. Sang-ah and Chan Seok realize the horrifying truth. Their captors don't want ransom. They want the hostages themselves as raw materials. The plan is to use the kidnapped fishermen to create an army of monsters. Ji-hun condescendingly states that while he doesn't care for them, his elders insisted he explain their purpose. He then proudly introduces his organization as the Heirs of Donggun, a group united by a single purpose. Their goal is to maintain and strengthen Korea's hegemony so that no one dares to challenge them. To demonstrate his power, he smashes the ground, sending cars flying. Then he declares with a manic grin that he will help build a truly powerful nation. With that, he delivers a powerful kick to the falling car. The impact sends the car hurtling toward Chan Seok and Sang-ah. Watching the car bearing down on them, our guy sighs in frustration. A moment of stillness settles on the ruined airport tarmac. However, he slices the car in half with his spear and challenges his opponent's premise, declaring that Korea is already a major power. Enraged, Ji-hun screams that it's not enough and dashes forward for a fierce attack, vowing to build a nation no one will dare to look down upon. And our guy braces himself, ready to dodge the attack. Ji-hun leaps into the air, delivering a powerful kick as he shouts his ambition of creating an unshakable superpower, and he recounts the peninsula's history of being extorted for tribute and forced into humility, and brings up the ultimate humiliation of their sovereignty being stolen, all while Chan Seok analyzes his opponent's taekwondo and surprising speed. Fueled by historical grievances, Ji-hyun yells that they will pay back all who have wronged them. At that moment, Chan Seok springs backward, narrowly evading the attack. As he lands safely, he admits to himself that his opponent's logic, though twisted, makes a certain kind of sense, while Sang-ah watches from the sidelines. But then our guy cuts to the heart of the matter, accusing him of having no intention of saving the world, to which Ji-hun callously agrees. When our hero argues that lives are in danger, Ji-hyun retorts that it's Chan Seok who doesn't understand the bigger picture. Our guy is intrigued, however, when Ji-hun reveals his group has found a way to control the erosion zones. The revelation shocks him, as he realizes this could change everything. He considers the implications. If they can control the zones, hunters would no longer have to risk their lives. So, he feigns interest in cooperating, asking how much control they have, and even offering to hand over Sang-ah, much to her horror. Ji-hun, however, is suspicious and arrogantly asks why he should share such information. When Ji-hun claims they've achieved sufficient control, Chan Seok immediately pounces on the wording, pointing out that it isn't full control. And he calls him out as a fraud, accusing him of being all talk with no real proof, just like other thugs with noble-sounding goals. The taunt hits a nerve, and an infuriated Ji-hun screams at him to shut up before attacking again. Our guy narrowly dodges another ground-shattering kick. Catching his breath, he thinks to himself that he might have overdone the taunting. He reveals his stalling tactic was meant to buy time to recharge his mana. Just then, he notes that his current mana is insufficient for his paradoxical phantasm flame, and that his friction of war ability is the best he can do for now. Charging forward, Ji-hyun suddenly notices something out of the ordinary, and just as he's about to attack, Han Sang-ah intercepts with a powerful blast of green energy. He is slightly surprised, having expected her to be paralyzed with fear. He condescendingly asks the pretty girl if she's feeling brave now. Chan Seok warns her not to get involved, but she points out that she saw his empty spare gauntlets proving he's out of mana. Realizing she's figured out his plan, he is impressed by her astuteness. Holding an elixir, she asks him how long he needs to recover. He tells her he needs 5 minutes as she prepares to inject the mana-restoring elixir into herself. After using it, she tosses the empty vial aside. Now crackling with yellow lightning, she confidently tells him to leave it to her. He frantically asks how many elixirs she purified, warning her of a potential overload, but she insists it's an emergency. However, he grimly accepts her help, confirming that after 5 minutes, he can end this. With fierce determination, she thinks to herself that he must not lose. A storm begins to brew as she gathers her power. A massive bolt of lightning strikes down from the sky. Ji-hoon grits his teeth against the massive influx of energy, telling the pretty girls to relax. She redirects the lightning bolt straight at him, even as he warns that he might kill her by accident. He watches focusly as her attack lands, and the full force of the lightning strike engulfs Kim Ji-hoon. Sang-ah wonders if her attack worked, only to see him emerge with just a trickle of blood from his mouth, asking, "What?" in disbelief. Completely unfazed, Ji-hoon floats in the air and mockingly declares her powerful attack was merely ticklish. Just then, he unleashes a powerful kick, striking her immediately. The force of his kick hurls her backward, leaving her unconscious, blood pouring from her mouth. But before she can hit the ground, a hand gently catches her. Ji-hoon now turns his attention to his opponent. It's Yu Chan Seok, now holding the injured Sang-ah, who calmly asks his foe, "Ready to die?" Ji-hoon is shocked, sensing that Chan Seok's mana has increased dramatically and questioning if he had been hiding his true strength. While tending to Sang-ah, Chan Seok asks why he's so surprised. He reveals that his mana recovery works on the same principle as Ji-hoon's piercings, stunning the martial artist. Chan Seok coldly states that only a fool wouldn't have noticed, and he explains that Ji-hoon had exhausted more mana than he could handle, causing purified mana to leak into the surrounding air. With a confident smile, our guy thanks him, revealing he used that leaked mana to restore his own power and his paradoxical phantasm flame. A panicked Ji-hoon screams in disbelief, claiming no method exists to absorb wasted mana. Chan Seok prepares to strike, telling his doomed opponent that he doesn't need to know the details since he's about to die anyway.